Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry. The full Dutch cruiser line is out, so today we'll be looking at the Tier 10, which we haven't previously seen, and this is the Gouden Leeuw. Yes, the Golden Lion, but if you want to actually properly pronounce it, I believe it's called the Gouden Leeuw. It can be a little difficult, but now you know. This ship didn't exist, obviously, but it was a ship that was actually planned. So the Dutch were having slight, and I've mentioned this in, I think, in one of the previous reviews, the Dutch were having slight problems facing the Japanese in the Dutch East Indies. And they didn't really have anything to counter the Japanese heavy cruisers that they were expecting to, deal a lot of damage to them. So they cooperated with the Germans and were planning to build a battlecruiser in order to counter the Japanese cruisers. Unfortunately, the Dutch hadn't really built anything large for quite a while, so their general ideas were quite a little bit outdated. But this would have been the final version of that project, and the guns, if you look at the turrets, are looking reasonably German already. So we'll get to that in a minute. Obviously, it never happened because the Germans had different ideas about the Netherlands. Basically, needed to be stepping on them in order to get to France, and then the whole thing just, went away anyway. But this is what Wargaming thinks it would have been looking like. Now, there actually was a ship called the Gouden Leeuw, and that was in the 17th century. There was a very, very pretty sailing ship, the largest at the time, a really large one. And so the name is not without precedent, as you will find a lot of times. So oftentimes when you see ships that didn't really exist, Wargaming often pulls them from older ships that have existed at some point, or something that matches the general naming pattern of things. So what do we have? What do we have in Tier 10, and how does it differ, and is it worth getting? Now let's begin with looking at the difference between the Gouden Leeuw and the Johan de Witt and see how they differ. The one thing that we notice is that we get a third ship skill, and that's actually a precise aim. So this is different, which means that if you're building your captain from the very beginning, you may probably want to build him slightly differently, because this is it's a skill that you only start getting at Tier 10, so it's completely useless before that. But let's look at the captain build also in a minute. In terms of the hull, she is a bit bigger than the Johan de Witt and a bit sturdier. So we've got 40,000 hit points and a 15% citadel protection, which is relatively decent for a ship that size. But obviously, we're in Tier 10, so we are facing all the big guns, which means it doesn't make that much of a difference. The maneuverability is, as is to be expected, worse than on the Tier 9, so we're firmly in supercruiser territory here, which is a difficult proposition in my opinion. But we'll talk about that more later as well. So instead of the decidedly British-looking 240s that we had in Tier 9, we now have something that looks suspiciously like the Scharnhorst's gun. At least that's what you would think, but it isn't. So the gun may be, but the turret isn't, because that is a 1928 turret. This looks a lot more. I've tried looking up the gun in the reference works, but I haven't really found this particular combination. It does look, though, that it may be the Scharnhorst's guns, but on an older turret from the Deutschland class. So this is a construction or design 1928 gun, which makes somewhat sense in the way that you'd have expected this to be a pre-war build. So that's kind of sort of where I think this might be coming from. Anyway, reload time, 13.5 seconds for a 283 millimeter, not terrible. The range is a bit on the short end with 11.8, and but the damage is a bit higher. And the turret traverse is a bit lower than what we had at tier 9. So yeah, like I said, firmly supercruiser territory. Actually relatively low caliber for supercruiser territory. Most of the big guns at this tier tend to be the 305s that we see around. The AA is fantastic. We will have a very brief look at how she compares to the Worcester in a minute. But yeah, the AA is still a straight up upgrade from tier 9. With a bit longer range on the small caliber AA. And the surface detection is again significantly worse. So I know that some people are playing these with concealment builds, but with a 9.48 kilometer surface detection, yeah, it gets a little tricky. But once again, we'll come to that in a minute. The airstrike that we can call in. We still only get 2 airstrikes, so that's just something we're going to have to live with all the way through. But we now get 8 bombers per strike instead of 6, and they do marginally more damage with the bombs and have a little bit more hit points. But it's not a massive difference. It's 2 more bombs and it's a bit more range than on the Johann de Witt. And in return, the reload time is once again longer. So I would argue that all in all, these are probably very, very comparable to, I haven't run the math, but very comparable to what you get in the de Witt at tier 9 in terms of the airstrike. So given that she has a really, really good AA, how does that compare to the Worcester? Well, the first difference is that the Gouden Leeuw gets the defensive AA 2, which doubles both small caliber and large caliber, whereas the Worcester gets the 3, which gives you a 200% buff on the small caliber. So we compare these two. We see that the Gouden Leeuw actually has the edge in the raw values on both large and small caliber. You have to see that though in combination, because the Worcester, first of all, has a longer range on the small caliber especially, and the smaller caliber is the one that gets the 200% buff. So the Worcester gets to start shooting earlier, and while the raw values are lower, the range is longer, and with the defensive AA up, especially within the 3 kilometer envelope, I think the Worcester still has the edge. But it's a very good AA ship, so definitely not something to underestimate. That said, it's also a pretty big ship, and it doesn't turn particularly well. So in a Worcester, you might be much more capable of, say, dodging torpedo strikes than in this thing. So doesn't mean that you can go around and sail on your own. So that brings us to, well, actually that does not bring us to the equipment. You get 2 choices. You can either get speed and acceleration, or you can improve your guns. And given that, I would say the airstrike is pretty comparable to the one we get in tier 9 overall, I think gun improvement is not a bad choice here, especially that we do have a larger caliber once again. But you do have still the choices in the equipment, and here it gets really, really interesting, because I think there are here it really depends what you're trying to do. So there's obviously the airstrike modification 1, which reduces your reload time by 8%. 8% is a decent value. So with that, if we're looking at the airstrike now, where is it? There it is. That means we get the reload time down to 58 seconds. Does that mean you're going to get an extra airstrike off? No, you're not going to get an extra airstrike off. You are, however, getting your airstrike back a little bit earlier. So all in all, you have it available a bit earlier than you previously have it. The alternative would be to go for the main battery mod 3 and get the precisions of the guns a little bit better. Or you could even argue to get main battery mod 1 for turret traverse. I think these are all valid choices, and it really depends on how you decide to play this ship. Now, like I said, some people, I think, would prefer to use the concealment and get the concealment down to below 9 kilometers. Personally, I think it doesn't match the way that I'm playing the ship. It might match the way you're playing the ship if you want to rely heavily on the airstrike. In that case, you could do it, but I much prefer, especially with the very, very poor maneuverability of the supercruiser size things, I much prefer the steering mod and actually having the propulsion mod in slot 2. You could absolutely also go for an AA build with this ship. And especially if you're planning on using this for divisions with a carrier, this would be absolutely monstrous using that within a carrier division. And you could go small caliber AA, and you could go air defense here for the range, and then use the combination of the carrier dive bombers setting fire or the carrier bombers setting fires or floods with these airstrikes, which have a relatively decent chance, especially on large target, to do that as well. Same with the supplies. It very much depends how you want to go. I could imagine building this ship for stealth if you're jockeying for position a lot more. And actually using the high-grade coal, actually in slot 2, using the high-grade coal here instead of the extra AA ammo. You can use the extra AA ammo for a more kind of general purpose slight buff to the AA, which obviously only matters if you have carriers or enemy Gouden Leeuws to fight with. Or you could use the preventive maintenance pack for additional hit points. That's also something you could do. So there are many builds that you could build with the ship where I would say can be sort of successful in order to, depending on how you want to play the thing. The camouflage, and it's tier 10, so I have put a historical camo on, gives us extra hit points, extra range on the main battery, which is much needed. The large caliber AA range, which is also decent, and torpedo damage reduction, which doesn't really matter, to be honest. But going to the commander. So here comes sort of the question, right? This is still the build that I've taken along from the previous one. So if you've started without knowing the tier 10 and you would effectively say, yes, there are 2 precise aims here, you could build for that early on, but you're not going to use it until tier 10. So the big question here, I have actually gotten an additional air defense alert instead and used the air defense expert. The difference here would be in level 5, you would get the fire supremacy for an additional precise aim, because 2 is, let's be honest, 2 is not enough. But you would sacrifice the survivalist for that, which gives an extra 15% on hit point restore. And given how large this ship is, it would give her more endurance to go with this one. At the same in tier 7, you can either get the repair kit cooldown done, so you can repair earlier and restore hit points earlier, or you could go with the marksman skill for a more long range play. The reason I've set it up like this and not necessarily with the precision mod, with the precision build, is that I tend to play this as similar to, I would say, an American heavy cruiser. So compensating for the relatively short range of the guns with more aggressive island-based play. And I think they're both valid. And I haven't really tested the other build, captain build. I think they're both valid to use. But I tend to play a little bit more aggressively, so I like to have the extra survivability on this. You obviously want the exploit weakness, because setting fires is something that yes, you'll be very, very interested in doing, and doing more damage on things that are on fire is also a good way. Extinguisher makes sense here because, well, first of all, it's a big ship, and these level bombers are doing a lot of damage against big ships. So you can also be on the receiving end of these things. Plus, it's tier 10, and yeah, you know how it goes. And she doesn't get a smoke, so it doesn't really make a difference. I have gone with demo experts because it's the only thing that makes sense. And you could either take compartment maintenance if you are coming under concentrated fire from planes. But I don't think you necessarily will unless you're really, really exposed and alone somewhere, and then have to deal with permafloods. But it's also a valid choice because let's be honest, the Honor Seeker is not a massive buff unless you do something like First Strike that you can get relatively easily and relatively early on, and that will then give you the 1.5% buff. But because you don't get a rapid reload, so it's really a fair deal between these two. With the guns, I would definitely, I don't know if the Dauntless Dive has any impact. I think somebody mentioned that it doesn't, but I haven't tested it. So it would take a bit of testing to see if it if it makes any kind of impact. I might have to do that unless somebody has already done it and I just forgot about it. Otherwise, I would recommend using the APCS, because these, while these guns are sort of Scharnhorst guns, they are also not the biggest caliber, and they can definitely use a bit more punch, especially in tier 10. And obviously the horizontal protection would be what you would choose for a level 12 commander, but level 12 is taking a long time to get to. All right, so this build here is not the build that you should be using, because there are, I believe, many. This is kind of the build for me that fits the island hopping aggressive playstyle relatively well. But yeah, like I said, you could absolutely argue to, instead of getting the airstrike modification, to get the main battery mod 3 for better precision, or to get the main battery mod 1. You could even play around with main battery mod 2, although the reload isn't that long, so I think it's not going to make an awful lot of difference. Anyway, many choices that you have with the ship and many ways you can play it. The one thing that you obviously need to compensate for is the relatively short range, because that means you're playing something that is the size probably of a battleship or a battlecruiser, but needs to play around islands and needs to get further forward. Now, the advantage that you have, obviously, with the dive bombers is that even if you're behind an island and in cover, you can still do damage to targets on the other side of it. So, let's try this out. In the first battle, it's a relatively classic Asian server battle. We've got Monty, Colombo, double Yamato, Stalingrad, double Shima. And we're playing base capture on Hourglass. So, what do you do with a ship that has an under 12 kilometer range, the size of a super cruiser, and guns that, at least in stock without the relevant captain skills, don't have the greatest armor-piercing penetration in the world? Well, you switch to the high explosive if you want to try and set some fires. And this is one thing that kind of works, but also kind of doesn't. So what I've tried here in this game, and I'll show you two games, but in this first game, what I've tried here is to really go for the sort of HE spammer build, right? To get a fire set, get somebody to damage control a single fire, and then get a multi-perma fire from the level bombers. But the HE isn't great. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's also not great. So there, for example, is the Stalingrad. Now, it would have been really nice to have the armor piercing loaded right here, but obviously the very first thing you need to do is get behind an island. Now, this is a double fire on the Stalin, and this is exactly what I was having in mind, but he stops there. So I'm not sure if my dive bombers or my level bombers are actually going to catch him, and if they're going to set a fire, because that is also not guaranteed. And yeah, the Stalin is backing out. I might be hitting the Shimakaze instead, but yes, no perma fire from me. So give it another shot, shoot at the Shimakaze, but now I have to back off because, well, first of all, there's a massive torpedo soup coming in from those Shimas, and there's a Yamato back there. So let's catch the kill on the Colombo, but now we got to get back up rapidly. And this is why I'm running the... Yeah, there comes the first Citadel. This is why I'm running... there comes the second one. This is why I'm running the propulsion and steering mod. And there comes the Colombo, and once I have a shot at, well, shoots off my turret. This is also one reason why I would not recommend using the reload module necessarily, because she does get her turrets shot off quite easily. So that's another thing. But yeah, now the Stalingrad's dead, but now we have a problem, because I have no way of reaching any of these guys over there, either with my guns or with my airstrike, because the airstrike has an even shorter range than the guns. So what you want to do there in that case, and this is where the sort of concealment build idea comes in, is you want to, which once again I'm not running here, you want to hop off to the next island. You need to be in cover. Once again, think of it like an American heavy cruiser, short range guns, and you absolutely need to use island cover. So over there is a Yamato. Yamato is coming in range, and I am once again his maximum gun range. This is as far forward as I want to be. I can shoot from the concealment right now, but now Yamato is far enough ahead to see me. There's also Shimakaze over there. And obviously the Yamato is of course shooting at me and has been stopping. because he's a Yamato and he wants to fight at maximum range. So fair enough. Once again, going defensive, and I can't airstrike the Shimakazes from over there. There comes the friendly Colombo helping out, and Yamato has obviously now has been distracted, so he is taking a couple of torpedoes there. Unfortunately, once again, my airstrike does not have the range to capitalize on that. He has damage control to flat though, so once again I'm still using the high explosive trying to set permafires. It's a really it can work very well, but oftentimes it also doesn't, because the fire chance is not that great and they don't do an awful lot of damage as they go. But once again, neither do the armor piercing, so yeah, you can collect a bit of damage here and there, but obviously Yamato is still shooting at me because, you know, I'm in a cruiser and I'm a big juicy target, and it's Citadel City when he can hit me and gets lucky. So yeah, you can get lots of hits in and just no fires. Okay, Shima is up, so Hydro to give the Colombo an advanced warning that there are Shimakaze torpedoes in the water, and there they are, so Colombo should be seeing them and should not be running into an awful lot of them. And that's why I'm using the Hydro here, just in order to spot those torpedoes. And yeah, I only have the two precise aims, so this is not the precise aiming build. The dispersion isn't great. It's not terrible, but it's not also great, so you definitely could use that to good effect. At this range against destroyers, it'd actually be better to use the armor piercing, because like I said, the armor piercing penetration isn't that grand without the APCS. So in that regard, you can actually use it. And once again, now I'm behind an island to be safe from the Montana shots that might be coming in there from the left. And obviously the two Shimakazes are still alive. And this is not a destroyer hunter per se, because your airstrikes are gonna have a really hard time hitting destroyers unless they decide to sail in a straight line. Now Montana has Shimakaze problems of his own, so once again I'm just trying to set fires here. But now I've got a Shima right in front of me, so need to slow down, get bow in. At this range, high explosive is the slightly better choice. Drop an airstrike in his general direction, but you know, as you can see, he just, you know, casually turns right a little bit, and that airstrike's completely going to miss. So I'm going to set up a second one as a follow-up, and keeping the island between myself and that Shima, and just peppering him with high explosive for now, because I can use the airstrike over the island. But yeah, I've got one bomb in. I think I needed to lead a little bit more. We are 1 kill ahead, but we are keeping these Shimas pressured here, such that they cannot be effective against the battleships. So one Shima is dead, and that the other Shima seems to have given up, or he is trying to, I'm not sure, or he is trying to bait me. I don't know. But sitting still and pretending to be AFK is not going to help you, because I'm not going to turn broadside. I've got my guns. I've got the HE loaded at this range. I've got the guns in. I've got the Hydra running in case he wants to. And now he either has to move or he has to drop his torpedoes. Okay, so he decides to move. So full on reverse, turn left, hard left to avoid the torpedo drop. Yeah, there it comes. And that's a dead Shima. And yeah, these torpedoes are not going to hit because I have the steering gear mod in here. And now we're sitting in the capture circle, and that's basically game. So yeah, I'm not sure if that Shima was having legit connection problems or he was trying to bait me, but either way it didn't work. So yeah, as you can see, one of the essential problems that you'll be facing in this ship is that it is very large and it is easy to citadels. It's the classic super cruiser issue. You do have a bit more utility compared to other super cruisers though, because you can, well, use islands, and you have to use islands, and you can use airstrikes over islands. The problem is obviously that the airstrike range isn't that great also. So obviously the Colombo takes the cake, because the Cristoforo Colombo, let's face it, that thing is I would say a bit overpowered, honestly. But yeah, so this is what I would call, let's say, an average game. We've set 3 fires, we've done a bit of damage, we have pressured the Shimakazes, and we've been useful to our team in that regard, and we've drawn a hell of a lot of fire from the big guns. Once again, obviously it's a tier 10 game. We're in domination on Crash Zone, which fortunately has lots of islands, which is great. We're up against double Shiki. I think Shikishima was in a crate somewhere. I've seen lots of Shikishimas doing stupid stuff lately, so that means there has to have been a crate around for that to happen. Lepanto, Zhao, Donskoy, Shima, and Chungmu. So it's a good mix actually. We do have obviously once again a Colombo and a Lepanto on our team. So it's just it's the new meta, Italian battleships. All right, so once again, island cover is the name of the game, and we can assist against destroyers. The guns are surprisingly behaving like regular heavy cruiser guns, so I would recommend generally using them like you would a 2 or 3 millimeter gun. You would use armor piercing at long range, and you would use high explosive at close range. And they're not the punchiest out there. But if you follow these rules, you can actually put the hurt on destroyers quite effectively. Because they do a fair amount of damage and reload reasonably quickly. So if you can make that happen. Okay, that island over there looks like waifu material. So that's where we're gonna head. That's where we're gonna head first. Gearing is doing the scouting, and I have some battleship with me. Haven't been paying attention what it was, but it's there. So. Once again, island cover is absolutely essential here, and because you need to cover this ship from the big guns. Okay, there's the Shimakaze. We could drop airstrike in his way, but I think he's going to turn because he has been spotted, and I have something Italian with me, so armor piercing shots out. And that has missed. Okay, there come the Shima torps. So I'm just going to donk into the island. We've got Lepanto and Zhao to deal with, so more torps coming in. Lepanto is turning, but I'll drop a speculative airstrike in his general direction. We'll see if that hits. And now we start unloading at the Shimakaze. And you can see, oh yeah, that has hit very nicely, but no fires. Oh well, can't have everything. But yeah, as you can see, the armor piercing at this range against the Shimakaze is the right choice. And yes, we've got the Colombo with us, so that's good to have. Yeah, we're doing reliable full pens. It's kind of like a Moskva without the precision and the range, obviously, but you can still put quite a bit of hurt onto the destroyers at that long range. And this is now a very low health Shimakaze, plus there's a Christopher Colombo. So we'll get one more salvo off at these guys. At this guy, we're running the Hydro in case there are any Zhao or Shima torps. But for some reason I have missed. I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe Shima mysteriously went AFK again. It happens a lot these days. Okay, Zhao. Armor piercing obviously being the right choice here. I am pushing forward a little bit, trying to get behind the island with the gearing, but obviously I do have to watch out with that Lepanto, because that thing can absolutely massacre me. So, triple fire from the Zhao. Okay, we're going to damage con that, which means we're now vulnerable to fire. So, Zhao is the primary target. Also, he is the one who is more dangerous for our battleship here. Gearing obviously has to watch out with the Lepanto, because yeah, Lepanto can do that. So he sent a couple torpedoes, but hasn't been particularly effective. And I am defensive here, because obviously the Zhao is going to try and burn me down. So we'll see if we can return a favor here. I'm not sure if he's going to stay stationary, but no, I think he's actually reversing. Okay, should have put that a little bit further back. But we've got a Colombo helping out from here. And obviously the Lepanto is shooting at me, because why wouldn't he? He's got nothing better to shoot at. So we're staying bow in, move forwards and backwards. And once again, if you need to play in open water like this, oh, and there's something coming in from the left as well. That must be one of the Shikis. Okay, I don't want to be here anymore. There's the Shimakaze on the right, Shikishima on the left, and Zhao and Lepanto over there. Okay, yeah, if you need to play in open water, having the... Okay, Christopher Colombo takes out the Zhao. That's one problem gone. If you're playing in open water, having the more standard maneuverability build is really, really helping you out. So if you don't want to island camp, but because you need to move at times to get yourself into range. Okay, now I'm on the high explosive because I'm checking if the Shimakaze is anywhere around here, and that looks like that Shiki might be sailing straight into my airdrop. So airdrop on, and then once again we're going defensive here, and he is now in gun range. So we'll see if we can set some fires here and do some good work. Okay, we've got one fire. Is he going? Yep. Shiki damage controls, and now he's going to run into all the gearing torps. So that's a dead Shiki. All right, Shimakaze is still hiding. I haven't seen anything of him in a while. And it looks like our Colombo has gone somewhere else and does not want to deal with the Shima anymore. So that's all right. We've got this under control over here. We've got all the 3 capture circles. We're 2 kills ahead, so this is almost foregone. But yeah, I'm still spotted, which means the Shimakaze is somewhere around here, running up the Hydro. Shimakaze has learned his lesson that he does not want to be spotted. And now I can start hunting that Lepanto over there. Now, obviously, Lepanto is going to shoot at me, which is fair enough because he's got nothing else to shoot at. And yeah, that is what even Italian semi-armor piercing can do to you. But one thing you can do with the dive bombers is that while you're focusing on, or level bombers, whatever you want to call them, while you're focusing on one target, like that Lepanto over there, you can kind of target multiple things at the same time. Okay, there's some Shimakaze torps. So I'm having a second drop onto that Shikishima over there on the left side, even while I'm actually taking the Lepanto under fire. So this is a capability that is actually quite fun. Because you have the ability to even across islands just casually drop some tulips onto somebody who's actually not even in your gun range or who doesn't even have you on the radar as a threat. So once again, there's still the Lepanto. I'm still trying to just catch him and see if I can do so. Ow, another citadel. Okay, yeah. So. If they do the smart thing and they stay at range, don't go chasing after them. You're going to lose that fight. There's absolutely nothing you can win on that. Just go backwards, go defensive, go into be behind islands because you do not stand a chance against any battleship in open water. You need to play smart. Okay, that was one overpin at the nose because he didn't know I was going backwards. Back to the high explosive because I don't think I'm ever going to catch that Lepanto. And chasing after him would be a stupid thing to do. So Conqueror takes him out, and that just leaves that low health Shima who has been dropping torps, so he's not going to AFK, but he's in hiding. He doesn't want to come out. So I'm just I don't know where he is. I'm just sending my cluster bombers out here to see if they can spot him. Not that it makes any difference. Because I'm never going to use him against the Shimakaze anyway, and we've won anyway, so if he doesn't come out, then it's still a job well done. So just generally trying to see if he's anywhere in the area where he might be, but he isn't. So yeah, that is the Gouden Leeuw, and how I'm playing it, having it set up. Is it a great ship? It is surprisingly okay, I would say. It needs to be played correctly. It is one of those ships that if you don't know how to play it, you're going to be really, really struggling. And I think that goes for all the super cruisers, which I don't really like. What I do like about the ship is the airstrike mechanic, because you can use it if you can use it on targets that you're not necessarily focusing on. Like I did just with that Shikishima there, who was behind an island, he was totally not seeing that coming. And you can use it on target of opportunity, like that. She is reasonably useful against destroyers. And she is capable of dealing with battleships, provided you can get into island cover. And she can tank a little bit, but beware of battleship guns at tier 10, obviously. And beware that you are a very, very large target. Haven't really played an awful lot against carriers yet. I do know that if you are getting targeted by a carrier, you do not have the maneuverability to dodge any of their torpedo strikes, and you don't have the torpedo defense or the hit points to tank it. So carriers can put a little bit of a dampener on you when it comes to the island flanker position, because you obviously then are going to be alone, and if the carrier starts striking you, even with the very, very good AA, against something like a Malta, you will not survive. So you are going to have to vary the gameplay a little bit in that regard. And I think get the right expectations that this is not a every battle 100k plus ship. It's a solid ship, I'd say. But it's definitely not extremely powerful and has its weaknesses. So something to keep in mind that if it is tier 10 and you will, you will face your difficulties. I still have to test if the captain skills are making any difference in terms of the dive bombers. And obviously I'll have to play this at some point with an APCS build as well, so just to try that out. But yeah, that's the Gouden Leeuw, the tier 10 Dutch battlecruiser, super cruiser thing. That's it for me today. Thanks everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.